Yes, sir. Let's go, everybody. Welcome back to the Daily Dose with Dylan Davis. I am your host, Dylan Davis, and today I'm joined by not Matt McGinty, my man, Mark Henry Jr. You can follow him on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. _. He is the host of the Tough Cover podcast here at the Painted Lines. The Daily Dose is brought to you by the Painted Lines Network. So if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, like this video. We're streaming to you live through YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you're joining us right now. Comment as much as you guys can throughout the show. We'll have some fun with it. And the Painted Lines has a new sponsor. Painted Lines is sponsored by XL Media, so there is a lot more to come with that. I don't have the full details to give you guys right now, but there's going to be a lot more fun to come with our sponsorship with XL Media. But for today's show, me and Mark were just chopping it up about the Phillies spring training, but we're not going to touch on that today. Today, we're going to talk about the 76ers versus New York Knicks matchup tonight that I will be in attendance for, that Mark, I believe, will also be in attendance for. And we're also going to talk a little NCAA tournament, who's primed for a first-round exit as an upset, what locks stick out to you in the first round, Mark. But I got to comment first and foremost. Love the uni, because I believe they're sporting those tonight.
Oh, really? Really?
Pretty sure when the Sixers tweeted out their preview matchup earlier versus Knicks, it had that design, I guess you could say. But I got to ask you, behind you, I like your choice of shirts today, my man. I see Jakob to the right.
Yeah, we doubled up today. So I'm breaking down on the Tough Cover podcast later on. I'm breaking down the Eastern region. So I try to, each time I'm breaking down one of these regions, I either throw on a shirt or put a shirt behind me of a team in that region that I like. LSU is that team today. It also goes well with 2-5 with Ben Simmons. I know he doesn't like LSU really that much anymore, but we're some synergy there. And then, I'm not a huge hockey guy, as I've said. I'm not a big Flyer guy, but I did see Jakub Voracek. He had a game winner. Was that overtime?
Yes, sir. Big 2 points for the Fly guys last night.
Yeah, big time. I have three Flyer shirts. One is on the current team. It's Voracek. I've had it for like a decade now. So it's always good when I'm able to break that out. The others are like Mark Recchi and Simone Gagne. so I'm happy I still got one on the team.
Hell yeah. Scotty loving the jerseys, boys. Scotty was not able to join us this past Monday for Mondays with Scotty, but he will be back next Monday and every Monday going forward. Hope you're having a great vacation, my man. So have a beer for me.
Scotty's killing it on Twitter. I feel like I like his tweets so much.
I'm living vicariously through Scotty right now.
I feel like I like so many tweets of Scotty's that I'm like a creeper on this point. Like I always am on the same wavelength as this guy, whether it's Jalen Hurts, as you know, or whether it's the Sixers or anything. It always seems like we agree.
Yeah. Also, Mark, big WWE guy. I used to be. Happy 316.
Oh hell yeah! Yeah, Stone Cold Steve Austin's he's the most important wrestler in the history of the wrestling business. So happy 316 day to anyone out there who follows the professional wrestling business. We're getting into WrestleMania season. I'm not that excited, but let's go.
All right, let's get into this Knicks-Sixers matchup tonight, man. Ben Simmons, a couple notes here. Ben Simmons has never lost to the Knicks. Tobias Harris, since joining the 76ers, has never lost to the Knicks, obviously, since Simmons hasn't. The Knicks are playing the second half of a back-to-back tonight in Philly. They battled Brooklyn down to the wire last night, so maybe some tired legs. Injury update, obviously, the Sixers are without Joel Embiid. That is the only injury to the Sixers squad. However, the Knicks will be in town without Derrick Rose, Austin Rivers, Mitchell Robinson, and Elfrid Payton I saw was doubtful, but I'm pretty sure he's not playing either tonight, so they are undermanned tonight. Mark, we'll get to our predictions and our stars of the game, but talk to me about any matchups you're looking forward to seeing, any keys to the Sixers having success tonight without the big fella.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, before I get to my matchups, you see Julius Randle last night freaking out at the end of the game?
First of all, he's wrong.
Yeah, I didn't even see the call that was like in question, but what I saw was Julius Randle tried to fight half the New York Knicks organization. Yes. He was trying to fight like the security, the coaches, the players. It was crazy.
Okay, so the Knicks were down a lot. I give them a lot of credit for battling back multiple times in this game against the Nets last night. But what ended up happening was they were down 3. They ended up like They ended up winning a challenge with like under 10 seconds left for a jump ball. He wins the tip. Thibodeau calls another timeout to advance the ball with like 5.7 or 7 seconds left, whatever it was. They inbound it. Burks inbounds it to Randall. He comes around and he pulls up for a 3 to tie it. And Kyrie like comes down and hits the ball. He doesn't pull the ball down. He just hits the ball. Randall doesn't lose control. He keeps it and then tries to dribble again. Ref called him for a travel.
Yeah.
He's bitching and moaning that he hit the ball, so it should be a jump ball, or he lost. You have to lose control to dribble again, my friend. Like, you should know this.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't even see the call. Again, I just saw the reaction, and I was like, oh, man, Julius Randle is not a guy I would want angry pushing me away. Like,
No.
That is a strong, strong man. But going back to your original question about the keys to the game, two things that really, really stand out to me. One is these have been this. Obviously, I think of everything from a gambling perspective because I'm a degenerate. But these are two teams that have been excellent in the first quarter and the first half. So these are two teams that really, they want to get out to a fast start. The Sixers, obviously, given their record, have a way better track record of keeping on to that lead in the second half. But I think if you look at the key to the game, if the Sixers are able to get out to an early first quarter, first half lead like they were with San Antonio, it could be a very similar game because New York has not been a good second half team. They've been a team that's come out really strong in the first quarter and first half, like I said. So if we're able to really get up early and kill their spirit, kind of, the Thibodeau, grind it out doesn't work as well when you're coming from behind.
No, and I'm going to kind of feed off your point from the Knicks defensive standpoint. Thibodeau has them playing great, very good ball right now with a great defense that they're being led by. Like I said, they are missing some guys, but they're more offensive guys outside of Mitchell Robinson. But it's farther down on my keys list. But since you brought up the defense, I'll go off of it. One of the things I'm looking for tonight how can this Sixers hot offense as of late compete against the Knicks defense? So this Knicks defense is top 5 in a lot of categories defensively. They're first in points allowed. They're first in opponent field goal percentage. They're first in opponent 3-point percentage. They're first in field goals allowed. They're third in defensive rating overall. They're top 7 in assists allowed. They clean up the glass pretty well. One thing they don't do too well defensively, they don't turn you over a whole lot. They're like 27th in turnovers and steals, so they don't turn you over in that form. But the Sixers offense, since coming back from the All-Star break, they are first in offensive rating. They're first in net rating. They're first in field goal percentage. They're second in 3-point percentage, and they're second in bench scoring. So, Mark, my question to you is, which of these statistics are you leaning? Who gets the edge tonight? This Knicks defense statistically, or can the Sixers offense stay hot tonight? Because that's what I'm looking for.
You'll hear this when you're going through my my regional breakdowns in the March Madness brackets. I'm such a nerd for offense. Like every time it's offense versus defense, I always say styles make fights. But it seems like offense, when you're the team that's struggling to get bucket and you're going 4 minutes without scoring, sometimes like the Knicks do plenty, especially in the third quarter, I just find it hard to believe that you're going to be the one dictating the pace of play. Even when a team's missing, when they're running fast tempo, it seems like they're going to dictate the pace of play, and eventually they're going to start falling. So I just think Tobias Harris, I don't really see anyone that's really as a 3 or a 4 on New York that's really got the size and the speed to both deal with Tobias. I think this is a big game for Tobias Harris, and I think it needs to be. And that's a theme going forward without Joel Embiid. Tobias Harris is going to have to be the main scoring option on the Sixers. Ben Simmons will be the main scoring option sometimes, but Tobias Harris is really the best scorer on the team without Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's not even the way I frame that question could sound a little off. I'm not saying that the Sixers don't need to win that offensive battle versus the Knicks defensive battle and have to score 120, 125 to beat the Knicks tonight. I mean, they could hold the Knicks under 100 again. So that's one area I'm looking for. Can they find just a little bit of success offensively? Can the shooters stay hot? One thing I want to go off of one of your points, you talked about how the Sixers get off to a hot start. You said the Knicks don't start off the second half well. You talked about their third quarter. Well, you look at that third quarter against the Spurs on Sunday night, and the Sixers dropped, 46 on Greg Popovich's head in the third quarter. So the Sixers start games hot, and they start second halves hot. So that's another thing that I'm looking for tonight. I got a couple matchups for you, but is there anything else you want to throw out there that you're looking for tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give. I guess I'll just give my NBA picks out here because my podcast today is really going to be just focusing on March Madness. I'm going to the game tonight, as I've said many times. I'm a degenerate, so if I'm going to a game, I have to have action on it. And the best thing I could find is I'm just riding trends here. Like we said, the offense is clicking and humming. They're whizzing that ball around the 3-point line, and it's just been a fun offense to watch. Over the last 5 games, we're scoring 127 plus each game. That's a really high number. The team total, I got it at over a 111.5 for the Sixers, so I need the Sixers to score 112. It has since went to 112.5. I still like it given the trend that the last 5 games have been 127 plus. I know that the Knicks are really high in all those defensive statistics and categories, but just taking a glance at their recent stretch, their last 5 games, and 3 of those are since the All-Star break. I'll even shorten it to a smaller sample size. Their last 3 games since the All-Star break, they gave up 117 to the Nets, who I know are a great offense, and they gave up 134 to the Bucks, who I know are also a great offense. But I know that they have great defensive numbers, and they do play a slower style than most of the teams in the league, and that dictates some of those numbers. But teams like the Sixers, like the Nets, like the Bucks, I don't think that's going to pertain to for the Knicks. I think where the Knicks are really winning games is when they get some of these great teams on a back-to-back, or when they get some of these middling teams. They really have been taking care of business. That's what Thibodeau always does. But that style is really tough when you're going up against the best offenses in the NBA. Not that I think we're the best offenses in the NBA, but we're certainly playing like it right now.
Yeah, that 111.5 number is very intriguing. I might have to copy you on that one. Might have to take Mark's pick there.
Hell yeah.
But one thing that's like, because we've heard it before, right? Like Utah was like the number 1 defensive rated team, and the Sixers without Joel, like Ben dropped 42, Toby dropped 36, and they scored a lot. The last time against Utah, we scored 140 or 142 or whatever to beat them. Like the Pacers and Miles Turner are supposed to be a very good defensive team, and we've seen what the Sixers have done against them. So that stuff, the defensive rating and all that, it's very nice. But you made a great point that I kind of want to talk about for a second, and you talked about style and how the Knicks can kind of control the tempo and the pace. So I guess that's another thing I'm looking for is, can Ben dictate the pace of this game? Can the guy on your uni, can the guy on my uni, 2-5, the guy behind me, can he dictate the pace of this game? Because if he can, I think the Sixers win this one handily. Can him and Tease get into passing lanes? Can they disrupt the Knicks offense in the half court and get easy, quick buckets and kind of run this Knicks team out of the gym? So that's a great point, Mark. And I'm definitely taking your over 111.5 there.
Hell yeah. I mean, one of the guys you mentioned right there was actually someone I was going to get to as just an absolute X factor for tonight, Matisse Thybulle. You look at how good he's been the last couple games. If Matisse Thybulle is going to be making threes, he's like a legitimate NBA starter. Like that, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Matisse Thybulle, the reason he's where he is in the NBA and where his value is where it is because he's a pretty much complete zero or a net negative on offense most of the time. But you look at how he's shooting the three over the last couple games. He's just been, even if he's average from three or a little bit below average, his defense and his energy and his ability to get on the fast break with Ben, like you said, is just so invaluable to this team, especially when you don't have Joel Embiid and you have to manufacture a lot more fast break points because you don't have the big fella who can just face up and get a bucket whenever he wants it. So it's just Matisse. The last couple of games, his minutes are up. He played 28 against Chicago, 22 against Washington. He only played 17 against San Antonio, but we were up so big. Like we had like 16 people getting minutes, 15 people getting minutes. So I think Matisse is a huge, huge X factor. And like you said, we're going to have to dictate the pace, and that comes down to more so than anybody, Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle.
Yeah, you talked about Joel, and this is going to be a fun breakdown because most nights when you have Joel, you know where the offense is being ran. You expect what Joel is going to give you. We don't have that, so we kind of have to look at this game from every other way. Who can step up without him? This is a very interesting point in the second half of this comment from Chris. What's up, guys? I took the Sixers at -7.5. I think this team turned a corner. It's a very interesting point. I think they win easy double digits.
So yeah, so you'll hear me a lot when I talk about gambling. I am a bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to laying big numbers. So 7.5 points to me, it feels like there's a lot of scenarios where the Sixers completely control this game and where the Sixers completely are kind of up 20 with 6 minutes to go, and the Knicks come back and lose by 7. So that's why I hate taking these big lines. If you really think that the Sixers are going to win by double digits and win easy, I think that team total that I brought up is just a better bet than that, because then you don't have to worry about, the end of the game, and you don't have to worry about BS in a non-close game. If it was 4.5 points or 5.5 points, it feels like I would take it. But 7.5 without Joel Embiid, I know we've been great and I've been singing our praises on offense, but 7.5 points is a lot of points, and it feels like I don't know where the discount is on that gambling line without Joel Embiid. To me, it's like, what would the line be if we had Embiid? Does that mean we'd be like at a 10-point favorite?
Sure.
So I think 7.5 is a lot. Yeah, I think 7.5 is a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. But obviously there's still a scenario where we could see the Sixers running this Knicks team out of the building. I just hope it's not. I just hope it's not one of those nights they let the Knicks hang around. And but that's a weird thing to say right now, because the Knicks, Thibodeau has them playing really good ball. I know they were like 4th in the East for a hot second, and now they dropped back down to like 7th or 8th, and they're 20-20 or whatever. 500, but they're still competing. We saw them do that with Brooklyn last night on the road. I just think tired legs tonight, on the road and back-to-back. The Sixers had a night off. This is the first of a back-to-back for the Sixers. I think, not that they ever think they're going to lose a game tomorrow against Milwaukee. I know they don't have that mindset, but they want to take care of business tonight against a lesser opponent in the Knicks, and then coming back against a tougher Milwaukee opponent. So it's going to be very interesting. A matchup, yesterday. Go ahead. Sorry.
Milwaukee. Yeah, I agree. They're not going into that game expecting to lose. Milwaukee's playing better basketball. They're getting back into their flow where they're going to be an Eastern contender the rest of the way and really contend for that 1 seed. So when you're contending for the 1 seed and you're the Bucks, you have to take care of teams like the Sixers when they don't have Joel Embiid, who's really the glue when it comes to the matchup against the Bucks, specifically more than anybody else. So. I agree with what you're saying in terms of it makes that game tonight so much more important.
100%. Like I said, we're going to have to analyze this game a lot because we don't have Embiid. And now on yesterday's show, me and Gint kind of looked at the schedule ahead and the time frame of Embiid's injury. And we kind of looked at it big picture. What can the Sixers record be over the next 9 to 10 games without Joel, and what's life going to be like without Joel? And we looked at it as a whole. Right now, starting tonight and then tomorrow, you have to take it game by game. And that's what we're trying to do here. So, Mark, one big thing to the Sixers' success without Joel Embiid has been a number I read to you earlier. Since the All-Star break, they are 2nd in bench scoring, offensively. That's another thing I'm keeping my eye on, because the major point I tried to hit on yesterday was I saw a lot of positive comments about the bench, and I don't want to be negative. I'm super high on this team. I have been all year, even when they were winning earlier in the year and the starters were undefeated and people, were hating on Danny Green. Like, just enjoy the ride. With this bench, I need consistency. I told Gint, I've been hurt before, man. They need to build my trust back up. How do they do that? Be consistent. So can the bench tonight, Shake Milton, Dwight Howard, Furkan Korkmaz, we already talked about Matisse Thybulle. Do you think they remain consistent tonight against the Knicks?
Well, I mean, I guess my retort to that, in terms of just being a Sixers fanboy, being positive. I don't know how many benches over the last, you want to say 3 to 5 years, how many benches are consistent? You know what I mean? I think that's that's kind of the nature of a bench. It's like there's obviously better benches and worse benches. I'm not gonna split hairs, but I think there's a nature of a bench being inconsistent. That's why they're not starters. But I think for me, my problem with the bench is with pretty much one man. I'll stretch it out to 2 sometimes, but really 1 to 2 people. Mike Scott should not be playing in the NBA at this point. No. He's running cardio out there. He needs to either be more willing to shoot from 3 or he needs to be better on defense. I don't get how he's still getting minutes. I want to see Paul Reed. I want to see more, I don't know, maybe some minutes where Ben's running 5 even, or Toby's even running 5. I know Tiago was talking about that, maybe Tobias Harris being able to run 5. But Mike Scott minutes need to go away. And in my opinion, I think one of Tony Bradley or Dwight Howard needs to be a stretch 5. We need to go acquire a stretch 5, even if that's not someone crazy. I'm not asking for Lauri Markkanen. I'm asking for Luke Cornett. I'm asking for someone who is just a body, who can just shoot it a little bit. I don't even think Luke Cornett's anything special. Taurean Prince is someone who might even be able to play some small ball 5. Larry Nance is someone who I know has been talked about. So my really my really thing about the bench is I think the bench is as reliable as it's going to be with, the Shake Milton and the Matisse and the Furkan, given the type of players that they are. My problem is I'm fine with whatever level of consistency those guys bring. My problem is with Mike Scott and then with either one of Dwight Howard or Tony Bradley needing to be a shooter that can play with Ben more consistently.
Sure, I agree with you. Again, it's all going to depend how long Joe's out. I'm looking at because in the postseason, I said this for weeks now. I don't want to see Mike Scott on the floor in the postseason. It can't happen.
No,
it cannot happen.
No, I completely agree.
Over the stretch, against some of these teams, when you get the Kings at home and whoever, these are games where I guess you can afford to have him out there. So I guess my point, life's going to be difficult without the big fella on the floor, Mark. Who needs to step up? But more importantly, looking at tonight's game, who is going to step up, in your opinion, in place of 21?
So not in place of, but Seth Curry is a guy that last game he dropped 21 points against San Antonio in really limited minutes. You'd think of Seth Curry, and that's a guy kind of like in the JJ Redick style, was so good with Joel Embiid. And Curry's numbers with Joel have been great all year. They've been a great pair on the floor together. I mean, anyone who pairs with Joel Embiid is going to do well analytically because of how much he improves the net rating of any lineup he's in. But Seth Curry especially, they seem to have a great synergy playing together. And I thought one of my initial thoughts when I heard the Joel injury was that Seth Curry is really going to take an impact. He's really going to have a negative impact from this and have less space to work out there. And the thing about Seth Curry, I'm probably the biggest Seth Curry fan in Philadelphia. I'm ordering the jersey. I love Seth Curry. I think he's the perfect fit when we have Joel. The thing about Seth Curry that hasn't been my favorite since we've acquired him, he needs to be a little bit more willing to shoot, and he needs to be a little bit more willing to shoot when he's covered. It seems like he's really only willing to shoot in a fast break or when he's wide open. He really is really selective, and that's why he shoots such a great percentage, and he's such a great shooter. And I don't want him to be chucking it, but without Joel Embiid, I do think he needs to be a bit more aggressive, and it seemed like he was doing that last game against San Antonio, and even it seemed like he was doing a little bit better of a lot of the times I get pissed off when he pump fakes, gets a guy out of him, and doesn't just shoot the three. He'll take 2 dribbles in and take an 18-footer, and it's just shoot the three.
Or he takes that long floater.
Exactly. I would just rather him shoot that three every single time. Especially with how good he is at it. It's so frustrating to watch. It's everyone yells about this is dumb, but everyone yells about Ben Simmons needing to shoot threes. I just want Steph Curry to shoot 3 more threes per game. I'd rather that. Or 2 more threes per game, whatever it is. I just think Steph Curry is someone that can unlock this team if he's a little bit more unconscious and a little bit more willing. And he seemed like he was that last game. If he can do that again today, that'd be huge. A guy that I'm worried about in terms of for the Knicks going against us is Emmanuel Quickly. He's a guy he's going to be killing it. He's been inconsistent, but the last couple of games he's been really excellent in terms of scoring for the Knicks. He's a big time X factor for this team.
Yeah, so let me get some comments. Justin says hop on if you want to, but I know we're going to be switching to the bracket in just a few minutes. We're going to give our predictions out in 2 or 3 minutes.
Actually, if you want to have him on, I might have to go on a call real quick.
Okay.
So Justin, if you want to hop in, I might have to hop out in a minute.
Good point about the bench, but I also don't know many teams that don't play starters with their bench. Yeah, Doc likes to just run 5 and then 5. What's going on, Jordan? Love the optimism. Love it. We won't beat the Bucks without Embiid, plain and simple. Okay. Look, man, I didn't get to that game. Will be broken down tomorrow. I don't think they're going to beat the Bucks without Joel Embiid, but this team is playing very well right now, and Doc Rivers has them on another level. Here he is. I know Mark's got to leave me. What's going on, man?
You.
How are you?
Yeah, what's up, Justin?
Right. What's up, Mark? I'm doing all right. I'm just chilling. Was watching your show and heard you guys talking about some basketball. Talking about some Sixers. So I figured I'd hop on here. Heard some people talking about Paul Reed a little bit.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I've seen a lot of Paul Reed. I studied up on Paul Reed a lot. So I've been feel like I could contribute to that conversation a little bit.
Hell yeah. So real quick, I'm going to leave you guys for 1 second. I'll be right back. I can even probably go a little later than we initially talked about, Dylan.
All right, that's fine.
So I'll be back in 5 to 10.
All right, man. Real quick, Jordan, I like to be negative so I don't get let down. Well, Jordan, that's just not a great outlook on things, okay? You can't grow as a person if you don't get let down, right, Justin?
That is true. That is true. Sometimes you got to put yourself out there. Sometimes you got to put yourself out there.
Exactly. You got to be willing to get hurt sometimes. But talk to me, man. Can Paul Reed, look, the argument before was he's just not ready to play in the NBA. And then, you don't want to overvalue what he did in the G League bubble and then just think it can translate immediately to the NBA game. But when you look at what Mike Scott's giving you, it's like, can Paul Reed not give you that? If not, like, his upside is going to be more. Like, can he at least not do what Mike Scott's giving you right now? Plus be a more athletic body, clean up the glass more, like just do little things better than Mike Scott can do at least right now.
Yeah, so I think Paul Reed can give you more defensively and through rebounding for sure, especially because like remember the lineup when we say we were going up against Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs when we had Jimmy here. Like when Mike Scott was playing that like small ball 5 role with Ben Simmons. So I think Paul can give you a lot in that role, in that small ball 5. He can hit threes every once in a while, but ultimately defensively, he's a Swiss Army knife in my opinion. He really can guard 1 through 5, and maybe not as much the 1 in the NBA role, but definitely showed that he can do that in the G League and even before that in college. I don't know. I think defensively he can be an X factor without, like, if you're not playing Mike Scott. Offensively with the 3-point shot, that's the one thing I'm not sure about yet. He did show that he can be consistent to a point in the G League. He did show that he changed his shot mechanics a little bit coming into the season. So it still looks weird. It still looks funky, but it was dropping down at like above 40% rate. Okay. So it's like, are you going to get that at the NBA level like you were at the G League level, or are you better off with having Mike Scott there? He's been doing it for longer.
But what the hell is? But I don't know the numbers, and I know he's been shooting a little better as of late. But what is Mike Scott shooting from deep on the year? Can't be too good. So like
I'll bring up real quick.
Damn, I can't believe I forgot this.
What?
Happy birthday to my MVP.
How did you didn't remember it was Embiid's birthday?
No, I saw it earlier, but I didn't say it yet. I forgot to say it. JoJo, I know you're watching, so happy birthday. I'll sing to you tonight down at the center.
Happy birthday, Joel Embiid, man. What a beast.
You're gonna hear me. You're gonna hear me on the TV broadcast. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, nice. I think that's definitely what he's looking for.
It is. It'll cheer him up.
All right. So here's I wish I could bring up the difference in stats and everything between his G League numbers and Mike Scott's numbers this year, but I don't think there's a way to do that. I can bring up Scott's numbers at least, though. Let's get to him.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to see if what he's giving.
You know what we'll do? We'll just go straight into his stuff.
He's shooting higher than I thought from 3, but still. Here's my point. 4.4 points per game. I feel like Paul Reed could slip and fall into 4 points a game and give you more defensively and cleaning up the glass and athletically than Mike Scott's giving you right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm trying to think how to say this. So the difference is Mike Scott's a little bit more of the player that I think the Sixers are looking for at the power forward spot right now when it comes to like just
stretching the floor.
This is what he does. He's a 3-point shooter and he plays sort of defense at this point in his career. Yeah.
He sort of plays defense.
But realistically, that's what you want at your 4 spot. You want a guy who's just going to sit there and shoot threes. At least at that 4 spot. That's why I think I see Reed as more of that backup 5, like that small ball 5 role, just because yes, he can give you that 3-point shot every once in a while, but most of his numbers are going to come from the rebounding and come from the paint play. At least that's what he showed. That's what he showed in the G League.
And I guess my whole point is, and look, I love how Doc has his team playing. I love everything about Doc Rivers and his coaching staff. Mm-hmm. One thing that kind of aggravates me is, and there's a comment up above it, is Doc, like, he'll throw the entire bench unit out there at one time for long periods of time. So I guess my point is you're correct. What Mike Scott does in his role in being able to stretch the floor because he can technically shoot it from deep, that's what they're looking for. But my argument is Paul Reed can just give you more all around than him. So why not throw Paul Reed out there with Seth Curry and another guy that can shoot from deep? So then you don't really need him to stretch the floor as much for Ben and whoever else and Dwight when they're out there. And you have Paul to do more of the other simple things.
Yeah, and it's funny you said, because I actually do think that is a possibility. Like I think, and I tweeted this out the other day, right before the Spurs game. Like, don't be surprised if you see Paul Reed get some minutes every once in a while for right now, especially with Embiid out. I do think he's going to get some chances this week and maybe into next week as well. I think he's going to get some chances so that Doc can see what he has in him. Because let me remind you guys, G League players this year, they just said this, and the NBA and NBPA agreed that G League players are allowed to play the rest of the season and the playoffs. Or two-way players, I should say, not G League players, two-way players. So Rajon Tucker and Paul Reed are available to play in the playoffs. So if, in my opinion, if Doc sees Paul Reed and sees, okay, this guy can actually bring me something more than these guys can, I wouldn't be surprised if he says, okay, maybe I don't need to go out and get another stretch big if Paul can actually come in and give me that. So it's
Sure.
tough. I think you are going to see Paul get some chances above Mike Scott in the next week or two. It's just a matter of when and how often, I guess.
So I have 2 points real quick. I'm back, by the way. My first point to what Dylan was saying, I don't think you were really complaining about it, but in terms of the bench unit where he does the hockey shift, my whole thing with that is I'm more in support of doing that than I am ever seeing Ben, Matisse, and Dwight in a lineup together again.
Sure.
So I feel like you got to either pick or choose kind of your poison there, whether it's going to be you run out those bench lineups, all five, and try not to get killed. Having said that, I completely agree with what you're saying, and just seeing if Reed can be the guy instead of Scott, or seeing if you can put a different guy in there and make Paul Reed the backup five, like Justin said. I think those are both really interesting things. I think we've just seen that Doc has a little bit of a shorter leash with the young guys, obviously with Maxey and even Matisse at times early in the year. He was just pretty much being used as a defensive specialist at the end of the games. So, and it seems like the only players on the team that Doc yells at are Shake, Matisse, and Maxey. Like it seems like really he only really gets into three guys. So I just think the youth and inexperience really annoys Doc, and he probably, even without seeing Paul Reed exhibit that on the court, I think he just probably assumes like he's too young to play. That's why I want to see him get in, just so Doc can see if he's good enough to play out there.
Yeah, and like I said, I think he will get in. I just think it's a matter of realistically chance. And Daryl Morey said this the other day during the G League championship game. Morey came on and did like a short interview with the broadcast team during the game, and Morey pretty much said like Paul Reed's been impressive. He's shown that he's basically the G League MVP. And he thinks that if for some reason he was able to find minutes to play, like it's hard obviously to get into a championship rotation like this. It's hard to get into that rotation, but he thinks that it is possible if he gets a shot. You know what I mean? So I think it's just, I think there's I do think there is a legitimate shot that if Paul Reed comes in and shows that he can do things, that he could get some short minutes in the playoffs this year. I really do think that. Because realistically, a lot of the guys that are like stretch bigs and guys that people would want to see next to Ben Simmons are high value priced people at this point, because shooting is a very high value thing in the NBA. So guys like Bielitsa, PJ Tucker, who you may want to see on the Sixers, they may be a little too high priced for us to think, okay, this makes sense for us to go out and get. So ultimately, if that's not an option, I could see Paul getting some run, getting some minutes at that spot.
Yeah. I've said all along, and more so about Kyle Lowry, that I don't want to give up these Maxey, Matisse, Paul Reed draft pick type assets because I want to kind of keep optionality going forward. I thought that was the beauty of trading Al Horford for Danny Green, who's got the expiring contract. You really you're not locked in anymore to the same team for the next 3 years. So I really want to keep that optionality. So I completely agree that I don't really want to sell my soul for Nemanja Bjelica or PJ Tucker. Or I would like to. So my goal, I guess, to get a 4 or 5 that can help us is to give up basically nothing So there's not a lot that you can get for that. So that's why I'm talking about like Luke Cornett, Taurean Prince. So I'm talking about guys who I think are pretty low value and could possibly fit pretty well here. But I would rather, before we make any move like that, I completely agree in wanting to see Paul Reed in both spots at the 4 or the 5 to see where he could fit with us.
Yeah, I don't think you would have to give up any of them for Bielitsa.
Yeah, you wouldn't. You would have. It would be, if you're going for Bielitsa, you'd be giving up a Mike Scott, Terrence Ferguson, like that. Those kind of guys. You wouldn't be having to give up a Danny Green or anything crazy.
So I just have a question.
Yeah.
Did I say anything different than Mark? Didn't we we just agreed with each other?
I think we all just got it. We just have to understand that Nadir, when he's in the comments, he or she, I don't know, in the comments, he's gonna go against everything you say, Dylan. We already know this.
It's a feud. It's
Justin.
It's a feud.
Before we let you go, my man, because we only have about 15 minutes left, Mark, and we got to talk some bracket. Give me your predictions for tonight's game against the Knicks. Can the Sixers continue playing well without Joel Embiid, or is this a slip-up game?
No, I think they'll play fine tonight. I think no one really matches up against them poorly tonight, even with Joel being out. I think that the one matchup I'd worry about, or one of the matchups I worry about, would be tomorrow. The Bucks game. I think that should be concerning because obviously, Joe does a pretty good job matching up against Giannis typically. Right. Ben historically has not. Just the length's too much for him at times. But anyways, purely tonight, I do think it's going to be a win. I think they're going to keep it going tonight. I don't think Julius Randle or Emmanuel Quickley is going to be able to hold off the insane tear that the Sixers are on offensively right now. So we'll see what happens. But ultimately, I'll be on for the post-game show afterward either way.
Most importantly, though, are the Sixers going to score 112 points or more?
I mean, how good has Tom Thibodeau's defense been? What have they been holding teams to lately?
I think on average it's probably around 106 on the year, 107 on the year. But 3 of the last 5 games they've given up like 117 plus. So and those have been against good teams. You'll
see how many if they'll be above 111 throughout the first quarter. If the Sixers, if Furkan's hitting shots,
Nadir's boy.
If Furkan's hitting shots, if like Seth Curry, Danny Green, like if those guys are hitting in the first quarter, easily, in my opinion. But if you see Furkan struggle early, or if you see any of those shooters struggle early, because Joel's not in there, it's going to be a rough night because that's just typically how it ends. If those guys aren't hitting or Tobias isn't hitting that night, that's when it gets rough without Joel because that's really the only way they win those games typically. It's not hitting threes, but just hitting in general, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. That first quarter and the first half are going to really decide the game. In general, not for obviously, I'm joking about my team total bet, but I think in terms of who wins the game or who covers, whatever you want to say, the first quarter and first half are really going to decide. If the Sixers get up early, I don't see the Knicks coming back.
Me and Mark will be down at the center to give this team a little extra juice tonight that the White and those guys seem to love so much.
Just do me a favor and yell out to everyone in the Sixers building to like go follow the Painted Lines on YouTube and all socials, and then just say, "Hey, the post game is on after this." Can
I make a sign? Do they allow signs in?
I'm just gonna walk onto the court. I'm just gonna be like, "Hey, Josh Harris."
Oh man, don't do that because they will never let me into another post game. They will never let me into another post game availability.
Justin said that he wants me to come and ask you guys.
All right, man. Great stuff.
All right. Good talking to you guys. Talk your college stuff.
Yes, sir.
I'll be listening.
Yes,
I need to get. Oh man, he's got the whole bracket. We have brackets today.
Yes, sir.
The other day, I thought you guys were having a hard time getting a bracket on the screen. What's you doing?
Yeah. Well, that's on the screen, bro. We had to print them out. I had to go old fashioned here because Mark was slacking.
I was getting frustrated.
Yeah, I heard it. I was listening. So listen, I'll let you guys go. You guys have a good night. Enjoy the game tonight. Like I said. Once you're in the stadium, just keep like whispering to people. Go watch the post game show afterwards.
Just start a Painted Lines chant.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, man. Good stuff.
All right. See you, boys. Have a good one.
Later. But Mark, let's get your opinions and we'll finish up the Sixers with our predictions tonight. I agree. I think that the Sixers handle the Knicks team well tonight, especially back-to-back. They had a battle Brooklyn, tough down to the wire last night. One matchup that I think, the Knicks kind of go, we know what Julius Randle is this year, but the Knicks have their wins correlate to RJ Barrett's numbers and success a little bit. And over his last 4, RJ Barrett is averaging like 24.5, 5 rebounds per game, 57% from the field, 43% from 3. And we know what the 2-5 penitentiary did to him last time, or the penitentiary, as some people call it. So that's a matchup I'm looking to see tonight. I think Ben kind of dominates that matchup. Toby and Randall will be a fun matchup to watch, but I think that Ben Simmons kind of controls the pace of this game, as we talked about earlier. I think that the shooters continue to shoot well. Tomorrow we'll talk about the Bucks game because you'll be coming back on with me, I believe. Yeah. That might be a different tone and story without Joel Embiid, but as far as tonight goes, 1-0 is the goal, as I like to say, and I believe the Sixers get that goal, and I believe it's on the back of Ben Simmons tonight. Go ahead.
120, 113.
Wow, dude, you
I did it on purpose.
Chris Steck is not going to be happy with that 7.5 point spread you just laid out there.
I literally had 120, 112 in my head, and I said 113 to be.
The Furkanites are out and about. By the end of tonight, we'll be referring to this game as the Furkan game. Dude, you can't play much. He is reaching what his ceiling is in the last. He's averaging like 16 points per game. He's shooting well from 3. Furkan's playing very well right now, just as the bench unit is. So I hope to see it be consistent again tonight. Mark, I, and Justin all had the Sixers winning tonight, and this will be what, 2-0 since the Joel Embiid injury?
Yeah.
That is big, considering he should only miss less than 2 more weeks, hopefully. But we all know how this process can be for the big man.
Yeah.
I have him coming back April 3rd.
I think I'd probably say more so like, I don't know, like April, like 15th, 16th, kind of a little deeper. Like I'm always pessimistic though.
That's like injuries. A month, bro. That's over a month from his injury.
Yeah. I think 2 or 3 weeks was a little hopeful, personally.
I just hope his conditioning stays up when he comes back. But let's get to some bracket talk, man. So today, I know on the Tough Cover Pod, you broke down the West yesterday. You're breaking down the East today, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So we're not going to break down any of the regions right now. I just want to talk to you about, look, I told you, there's some teams going into Selection Sunday I just wasn't high on. Some high-seeded teams. Iowa as a 2. Baylor as a 1. I think Baylor is very beatable. I was high on Michigan, and then I see their possible second-round matchup. And this bracket's laid out very, very weird to me when the matchups get to what I have so far. But today I want to talk to you about which first-round games stick out to you as, like, which games could be primed for an upset, which games are primed for a lock, sell the house on it. Let's start with the locks because that's a little less entertaining than our upset talk, Mark. Who's a lock to win this weekend on Friday and Saturday, in your opinion?
UNC. I was saying it the night of on the Selection Sunday watch party. UNC absolutely dominates the offensive glass and is such a good rebounding team. Their front court is just absolutely dominant. Down the year, they've gotten better. They've gotten better production from their guard play. So I think UNC got a perfect draw against Wisconsin. USC probably, I might have put them at a 7 seed, maybe even a 6 seed if they might have won an extra game in the ACC tourney. But them falling as an 8 seed, I would normally say that's bad luck because you get a 1 seed. But the fact that you're playing Wisconsin in the first round, I almost feel like they're guaranteed to win. It's only like a 1 or a 2 point spread. But I absolutely love UNC to win and to score over 70 points. I believe that's the team total. I don't think Wisconsin's going to slow the game down and keep it to the pace they want to play at. You look at the main Wisconsin big man, Brad Davison, the Illinois coach is Brad Underwood. I called him Brad Davison the other night. Brad Davison is shooting like 20% at the rim this year. Like he's like the worst like post center I've ever seen. So I just think the offensive glass and the inside game of UNC is going to be so much for Wisconsin, and they have the athleticism advantage. This is North Carolina playing against Wisconsin. I could not love the matchup more. It's not even like Roy Williams is a bad coach. So I love UNC to win that game.
I do not like UNC as a fan, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
I like them as a lock this weekend. I'll throw two out your way, and you can tell me about them. I'll give you another 8-9 matchup. I love LSU this weekend. You know my opinions about their possible upset in the second round, which we'll get to. And then I also love San Diego State. Now it's a 6 or 11. It's not that crazy, but you talked about it before we went live here. A lot of people are going to take Syracuse simply because of the name. San Diego State's a really good team. They only dropped 4 games this year. I think they handle Syracuse pretty easily, and I think a decent amount of people will lose some money on that matchup.
I agree. I think you're betting in name. You're betting on name value alone when you're betting on Syracuse to win this game. I know that they've done well in the past, even as a 10 seed or an 11 seed, but everyone's going to talk, Syracuse zone defense. Yeah. Everyone at the water cooler at the offense is going to talk about Syracuse defense. The defense, you should be talking about San Diego State. They have some athletes that are just you don't want to get into an athlete fight with San Diego State, which is what Syracuse tries to do with the zone defense. Not exactly an athlete fight, but when you're playing the zone defense, you really can't let San Diego State shoot it from 3 or get inside. And I think they're going to be able to do both against this defense. And I don't see Syracuse beating San Diego State. And I think that 6-3 San Diego State, West Virginia matchup is going to be an absolute dogfight. And I think they're basically playing, a little spoiler alert for my Midwest breakdown later in the week, I think that San Diego State, West Virginia matchup is basically deciding who gets out of the bottom half of that region to the Elite Eight.
Like it. Well, we bored the people enough with our lock picks, Mark. Let's get into the more fun and exciting part of the bracket, which everyone looks for, and it is the upsets. And if you want to win a bracket, if you're entering a bracket for money or prize, whatever, you have to pick some upsets. Obviously, they happen every year, but Mark, how can we help the people find some? There's a few that stick out to me, and 2 that I really want to just pull the trigger on, could end up meeting in the second round, and that's why it's throwing me off, because it's like, will a 12 and a 13 match up in the second round? It's always tough to have that happen. Creighton and UC Santa Barbara. I'm not sold on Creighton at all. UC Santa Barbara is a possible upset in my opinion. Virginia and Ohio. Virginia's going to score like 52 points. Ohio can score. Is it their point guard or their shooting guard? One of the guard play is one of the better players in the entire country. Ohio can score. I like them there. Georgetown was a name I threw you earlier, but as you told me, Colorado is a senior-led team, and they handle bigs pretty well. And then as well as the winner of Michigan State, UCLA, BYU, I think it's going to be Michigan State, but either or. Those are basically the left side of the bracket is my upset side. I see no upsets really on the right side. Sure, Rutgers, I like them over Clemson. That's not really an upset, but help the people out here, Mark. Can you see Santa Barbara? Can Ohio? Can Georgetown? Can Michigan State? Or talk to me about Grand Canyon. Can they take down Iowa? Where should people be looking here?
So let me go through the couple that you talked about first before I talk about a couple of mine, because I'm a little bit chalk this year. So Creighton, UC Santa Barbara. Creighton is not a team I believe in. They're not a team I buy in on. Marcus Zagorowski is their best player. He's really up and down. One game he shoots 10%. One game he shoots 60%. So it just fully depends on what type of game you're getting out of Zagorowski. He's really the X factor in this matchup more than anyone on UC Santa Barbara or any of his teammates on Creighton. I want to pull the trigger on UC Santa Barbara. The Gauchos have been good to me all year, late night in their shitty conference. But the fact that they haven't played anyone in the top 75 in net ranking or anyone in the top 80 in RPI really scares me. I just don't know how they're going to I just don't know how they're going to react if Creighton starts draining threes and gets to an 8-point lead or something like that. They haven't been down a lot this year. And if they had a Winthrop, I shouldn't give away something I'm going to talk about in a minute. If they had a Winthrop type resume, 23-1 against that bad resume that they played against, maybe I'd be a little more willing to go with them as an upset, because they're battle tested in terms of they didn't lose the games they were supposed to. So they're supposed to win, I should say. But so I can't pull the trigger on UC Santa Barbara, but it doesn't have anything to do with Creighton. It just has to do with me not being sold on UC Santa Barbara's resume. Then when it comes to Virginia and Ohio, I initially hate that. But then when you really look at it, Virginia's COVID pause that's kicked them out of the ACC tourney could really screw up any team, especially a team that took a long COVID pause earlier in the year with Virginia. So I don't know how Virginia reacts to that. It's really hard for me to bet on that either way because of that unknown factor kind of. But Ohio, Jason Preston as their point guard. You were talking about him before. He has an excellent story. He thought he was averaging like 2 points a game as a senior in high school. He thought he was done. He started writing for a blog, like Fansided, as a Pistons blogger. He's like a big time nerd, Jason Preston, and now he's averaging like 25 a game in his conference tournament. So it's a really good story. I know that there's more to that story than even what I said, but there's a lot. So that almost does feel like, that's the story. Jason Preston, Ohio, they'll take him down. But to me, this is based in not a lot of facts. So this is not very analytical. Ohio seems to be a little too trendy for me right now. It always feels like there's one or two of these picks that are like, and Georgetown is the other one, I'd say. They're just so everyone likes these 5-12, 4-13 upsets. I try to go for a little bit of a different one.
Sure.
I think Ohio is a popular upset. I don't think it's a bad idea. I know someone asked me on my podcast in the comments the other day if Ohio plus 7.5 or plus 8.5 was a good bet. I think it is because, like you said, Virginia likes to play these slow, low-tempo, slow-scoring games. So when it comes to that, Ohio should be able to keep it close, even if they can't win the game. But I can't endorse a win for Ohio. I think Virginia and Creighton face off in a second-round matchup. And who's more fraudulent will be the loser. I went with Virginia to win. And then the one other one that you mentioned was
BYU.
Yeah, BYU against Michigan State, UCLA. It kind of goes along with that again. The trendy pick here is going to be Michigan State, UCLA, and a lot of it is because of name value, but a lot of it is also because these teams have beaten good teams. These teams have shown that they're show up and down. They can show up and they can beat the best of them, and they can show up and they can lose to the worst of them. So it's risky to bet on Michigan State or UCLA. I like BYU a lot more than most people seem to. I think their transfer from Purdue, Matt Harms, is going to help them out a lot. They have their 3 or 4 best players all shoot well from 3. They all score the ball. They all defend, and they're all tournament tested because they're all seniors. So I like BYU a lot. That's probably like out of those 3 things you gave, I probably like BYU the most of the 3.
Okay.
In terms to advance. But my upsets this year, I have one big upset in the first round, but my upsets this year are really more so in the Sweet 16 and more so in the Elite 8. I think the strength of this bracket are like the 4 seeds and the 6 seeds, and maybe even a couple 8 seeds, like you mentioned with LSU. I think that's really where the strength of this bracket comes from. So I have, like I said, I had a very chalky bracket. I also only have one 1 seed in the Elite 8. So I think it gets a little crazy once we get to the second and third weekend. I think that's when it's really going to get crazy. But my one big upset for the first round, before we even get to that one, my big upset that I want to pick that I can't pull the trigger on is Grand Canyon over Iowa. I did bet them already as a 15.5-point dog. I hammered that already, but I love Grand Canyon. They get up and down the floor. They shoot the ball. They were great at home this year. In a year that not many teams were so great at home. Grand Canyon really defended their home court, and Grand Canyon, I wanted Grand Canyon badly to match up with a Houston or Kansas, but they got Iowa, who I'm not huge and like insanely high on Iowa, but the problem with them is how good they are at shooting the 3 ball. Grand Canyon, that's their biggest strength. So it could turn into, Iowa has a cold game. Grand Canyon could win. I really do think they can, but I couldn't quite pull the trigger, so I do have Iowa advancing to the Sweet 16 in that bracket. But my big upset that I'm like so confident in, and I hate to say it. Like I hate to say it. I'm a Villanova fan, Visa, but I love Villanova. But Winthrop's going to win this game. 23-1. They handled their business. They played a little bit better of a schedule than some of these teams that don't have the resume for me to pick them. I'm pulling up who they beat right now, but Winthrop shoots it so well from 3. They've been to the tournament before. They've been a good team for a couple of years now. Their coach really has them going. Villanova, I know Jay Wright is the best coach in the country. I would rather have Jay Wright than any other coach in the country, not even close. But when you take away Colin Gillespie, I said it on the Selection Sunday show, but the 3rd and 4th best player on the team were a problem all year, and now I think the 2nd and the 3rd best player on the team are really a problem for Villanova. So I really don't see how Villanova wins a game this year in the conference tournament. Winthrop beat UNC Greensboro, who also made this tournament really handily. They beat Furman, a team that played against UNC Greensboro in the conference championship in that conference. So they have played a couple teams who were either in the tournament or right outside of the tournament, and they've handled them, and they've obviously handled their own brackets, so area in their own conference. So I think Winthrop is a really scary team, and honestly, I have Purdue moving on in that same bracket against North Texas. If you're Purdue, you rather see Villanova come out than Winthrop. Villanova does not have the bigs to deal with Travion Williams and Zach Edey, and Winthrop kind of does. So I think that's a situation where the 4 seed is going to be rooting for the 5 seed.
I hope you're wrong.
Me too. I really do. Me too.
But great show. A lot of good stuff with Mark Henry Jr. here, the Tough Cover podcast, which will be going live in about 5 minutes or so.
Hell yeah.
But Mark will be back with me tomorrow to keep dissecting this bracket, maybe as a whole. Maybe we'll talk some first 4 games that will be taking place Thursday night. Also, we'll be covering the Sixers game, breaking down the Sixers-Knicks game from tonight because we'll be there live and be able to see it a little bit better. And just talk about our experience, and then we can break down the Bucks game tomorrow night a little bit as well. So for myself, you can follow me on Twitter at DylanJD98. You can follow Mark on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. _ You can follow one of my other podcasts on Twitter at Faithful Fans 2. I also spring training is coming to a close in just a few weeks. Opening day is around the corner. I have a Phillies weekly podcast with Mike Small here at the Painted Lines called Spitballin'. So you can follow us on Twitter at Ballin' Spit. Just spitballing backwards. Mark, tell the people where they can find your podcast.
At Tough Cover Pod on Twitter and Instagram. We'll be going live in 5 minutes to break down the East region. Broke down the West region yesterday, South tomorrow, Midwest on Thursday. And that's the week.
All right, man. Everyone have a good night. Go Sixers. Mark, I hope to see you at the game. If not, enjoy it. Talk to you tomorrow.
You too, brother.